Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. I'm your host, Brooke Mitchell, and today's webinar is Who's Who, How Identifying Individual Animals Can Help Save a Species with marine biologist and expedition leader Maria Marcias. Thank you so much for being here today, Maru. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brooke. And I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Thank you for connecting. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I will. So let's get right to it. Who is who? How identifying individual animals can help save a species. I will try to go quickly because I don't like to see my picture, but I have to introduce myself. My name is Maru. I am recently an expedition leader for Natural Habitat Adventures in the gray whale trips. But before that, I was doing research with southern right whales in Argentina, where I'm from. Then I was lucky enough to do some research also with baleen whales in the Southern Ocean, aka Antarctica. And recently, of course, a lot of research with the gray whales, for which species, when I met them, I just fell in love with them, moved to Mexico, and since the last 6 years, I have been monitoring and researching gray whales until I started working as an expedition leader for Natural Habitat Adventures trip. So every time I get an opportunity to speak about whales, I'm super happy. And also, in particular, about this technique that we're going to talk about, the photo identification of these individuals. It's something that I just love. So let's go right to it. Hopefully, some of you know about this game. I don't know if you have played with it, but I have played in my childhood. In this game, you have your opponent and you describe a person because of their characteristics, either their facial or what they have done in life. So, for example, if I would say a famous Mexican female artist, of course, you know already who I'm talking about, right? Frida Kahlo. And that way you identify the particular character that we're talking about. So as you can see, even though we are all humans, there are some individuals that stand out and that we can identify, right? And can there be something similar for the animal species, for other animal species? Well, of course, yes, and that is the photo identification technique that we are discussing today. So in particular, some animals have some particular stripes, marks, scales, or anything that each individual have unique. So for example, with humans, even though we can do facial recognition when we show up our passport, what is unique about us is our fingerprint, right? So that is what we are using with animals too. Patterns of spots or stripes or anything in their body that works as a fingerprint and allows us to identify particular individuals. So for some of them, of course, it's not that easy is to recognize it. So we need to put tags, and that makes it a little bit more difficult, right? Because we need to capture the animal, put the tag, and then recapture the animal to be able to collect this information. But with some other animals, it's a little bit easier because of these patterns that I was mentioning, right? So we will talk about this photo identification technique. In this case, you can see the humpback whales. Some of you may know that you can identify individual humpback whales with the patterns and spots that they have on their fluke. And this technique, if you would tell me that I would spend the rest of my days just doing photo ID, I would be super happy because I really love being on the field doing this kind of job because it's, well, it has some advantages that it's relatively cheap. Of course, if we are going out to study whales, you need to have a boat, you need to have gasoline, you need to have the research permit. But in general, comparing it to, for example, a lot of people ask me, why don't you put a transmitter on the whale so that you know where it's going? Okay, yes, but the transmitters are very costful, right? They are expensive. So this technique allows you to collect a lot of data, the photo identification technique, a lot of data relatively cheap, relatively easy, and with little equipment. And if there are some photographers listening, you probably know that it's not only about the camera, but as the individual that is taking the picture, it's important. But still, the training that you need to do photo identification, it's a little bit easier than other techniques, let's say to take a biopsy or fly a drone. So comparing all of that, I think this is a wonderful tool that just allows scientists to have so much information about individuals like the whales that are so wide range and migrate and have a lot of difficulties for us to do the research. So we will start with the one that we know most. We will start with the gray whales to speak a little bit about this technique, in particular how researchers use this technique. So remember that we said that the humpback whales have a particular fluke. Well, in the case of the gray whales, you could also use the fluke, but the problem is that when we see the whales in the Baja lagoons, which is where I worked, they normally don't show the fluke. They show it sometimes in the deeper lagoons in Magdalena Bay in Baja, Mexico. But what we most normally see is the diving pattern, right? So we see them breathe and we see them show the dorsal area. So that's why we use this part that has some particular spots, some particular markings that are consistent throughout a lot of time, and that allows us to identify particular individuals of the gray whales. So what you see in this picture is the part that we need to see of the whale to take the picture, right? So I was lucky enough to do this for 3 seasons, also training volunteers and explaining them how it's done, how we collect the data, and getting a lot of information for the gray whales, for also knowing from individuals to ecology population. So, are you ready to take the shot? Here, in particular, in this picture, it's from the last trip that we did with Natural Habitat in the Baja Lagoons in Laguna San Ignacio. It's not a photo that we took for photo identification. It's a tourism picture, but it's exactly the same, actually. So as you see, we are seeing this dorsal area of the gray whale with a little bit of the back part of the whale and a little bit of the front. And you can see a little bit of the spots. I was actually taking a picture of the whale and my colleague here, the other expedition leader. And so here you see that it's perfectly perpendicular. So the whale positioned perfectly. Sometimes, if you're photographers, again, you know that the conditions of, if it's choppy, sometimes the splash will cover the whale and don't let us take the picture of the dorsal. Sometimes the glare will be right there and we cannot tell the whale, oh, could you please move a little bit like this because you have a lot of glare now. So we need to move the boat and take the picture at the exact time, right? So a lot of different factors are influencing, but this is something that would be a perfect shot for photo ID and also for collecting memories, right? So, and I want to say a little thing, something more that something that is very funny for me is that when we are researching and doing this data collection of particular whales, we start naming them, but not in a research way. Of course, the whale has a code later on that we put on them, but for us to be able to talk about these whales that we're collecting the data, we will say, for example, oh, this is little owl. I don't know if you reach to see, if you have a crazy imagination as I am, this is like an owl on its side, okay? But you can name it as you want. It just has a dot here, so you could just say, oh, this is dot. And then the next time you see it, you know that this particular whale, you already saw it, right? So with that, let's see if we can click and capture the photo that we need for photo identification. Here the whale just popped, and there. Were you ready? Did you have your camera on? Okay, let's do it one more time. The whale comes out to breathe, and then there is the moment that we need. Oh, I was a little late. That is the moment. In here, in this video, what I want to show you is that in Almejas Bay, which is one of the Baja lagoons that we do research in, they are so relaxed that they don't come out that much. So you know that with whales, they have a diving pattern where they will have a breathing cycle of, let's say, 3 to 5 times. And then once they're about to dive in, they will arch a little bit more. And that is the perfect moment that we need to take the picture. Of course, if we take pictures before of the other cycles or of the other breathing inside that cycle, it's okay. But when it comes really out, it's better, right? Because we have a more surface of the whale out of the water body, so that we can take a good picture and have a lot of information. In this case, we would have to settle with what we have, right? You can still see that she has a line here and that she has a white spot. So let's say it's good enough, because that's all that we can get sometimes in nature, right? And as I was saying, be careful how much data you collect. If you take a lot of pictures, and if photographers are not going to let me lie about this, you have a lot of things to process later on when you get back. So basically, during the season, the researchers, what we're doing is photo identification. So each time that we have good weather and that there is light, you would be there all the hours in the sea as possible. And then when we come back, we just divide roles and we start processing the data, because we need to back up all the information that we have, because next day you're going to take the camera out in the ocean again, and you need to save the data from the previous day just in case something happens. So some people will go and prepare a dinner for the rest of the team, and some of us will start editing and processing. So if you remember the previous picture, you could see the whole ocean and the lagoon, let's say, and the background of the mountain, but you need to crop it. You need to put the horizon straight, and you need to do some editing of the white balances and all that. So it's a little bit of processing all of the pictures of photo ID, and then you will have something like we see here on the right. So during the season, the person that had to take the picture the next day will not go to the sea, unfortunately, because it has to process all of the data from the previous day. So we take turns and shifts, and you will be processing the data, and you will try to identify the whales that you took that day, comparing them to the previous days of the season. And after we do that, we do it manually, but then when the season finishes, we will use a program that will help us compare the pictures of this season with pictures from last season and other seasons and previous years. So this is collecting a lot of information, as I was saying. And when you get a match, it's something like this. You run the program with the dorsal already, where the dorsal area already edited. And if you have a match, you would see something like this with a high score of coincidence, which is all the spots that are basically the same spots, which are telling you that it's the same whale, right? So you saw it in nature, the whale is beautiful, and now you have this, okay? But this is the data that we use for photo identification, right? So here you can see probably this is from one season, and this one under is from another. So I just wanted to let you know a little bit about how the process is. And it's as I was saying, it's still quite easy and quite powerful, because you get a lot of data, and with that we can get a lot of information from the population. So what information are we getting from doing all this process, that with the help of our sponsors, the researchers are collecting this data, okay? Minimum age, for example. This is something that if you've been on our trips, maybe you know, so I will try to go a little bit quickly. But in this particular case, as you know, with the gray whales, we have been studying them since 1970. So this particular female that you see here was seen for the first time in 1977. And when we took the photo identification picture, she was a mother already. So we know that gray whales start getting reproductive at least at 6 or 8 years old. So she was at least 6 or 8 years old in 1977. And to our surprise and happy for us is that each year we kept seeing her multiple times, sometimes as a mother, sometimes as a solitary. And we saw her last year again as a solitary in 2024. So if you do the math and you rest 2024 with 1977, you have 47 years plus the 6 or 8 years that she was already in this year. So that means that this whale is at least 53 or 55 years old. So we know from dead whales that gray whales can live 76 years, right? But we haven't done research since so long, right? We have done research since 1970. But as you can see, this is the oldest female of the gray whale that we know right now. And if we continue to do research, we may know all the history of this whale from when she was very young to when she's getting right now, as we say, the oldie, right? She's getting old, let's say. So with that, also, we can get information about the calving interval, which is a parameter that we use, a reproductive parameter that biologists use, and is very important. So with other techniques, we know that when they come in winter, sometimes they come in the lagoons of Baja to give birth. They will be nursing this calf 3 months. We will be seeing the whale with the calf in the lagoon for a few months. And then they are going to start the migration back to Alaska. So they're going to start heading north. And at some point, they are going to separate, right, at 7 months, let's say. And then there's going to be a resting period. And the mother will migrate back. And then the next winter that she's in Baja, she will mate, right? And then 13 months of pregnancy will take her to the next winter in Baja. So this is a 2-year cycle that we can study also with photo identification. So if you see here, during the research periods that there has been in the San Ignacio Lagoon, which is where we take the trips and where the researchers are doing all of this, you can see that you have how many whales you have seen twice or 3 times or 4 times or 5 times. And when we see it with a calf or without a calf, we also take note of that. So if you see, if there are changes in the average of interval between the calves, this could be for different reasons. It could be because of the amount of data that we have. So now we have more data, so the average is more accurate. Or it could be a sign of alarm that something is happening, right? So if here it decreases the number, it's okay. But if it starts getting, instead of a 2-year period, a 3-year period, maybe it means that something is happening to the calves on the first year, right? So all of this is taking information from individuals, but putting it together to understand what is happening with the population, and in this case, with the mothers and calf in particular, right? Another thing that we can get from photo identification is the habitat fidelity. So as we were saying, some of the whales, we are seeing it in different years, not all of them, of course. How many? Well, let's say around 34% for mothers and calf have been seen more than twice, and only 9% about the solitaries, the ones that are maybe males or females, but that are not with a calf. So if you see also, the habitat fidelity is stronger in the mothers and the calf. And this is something that we see a lot in the Laguna San Ignacio, because we see the mothers and we see that they come with their babies and they stay longer than the solitaries as well. And they are repeating the same lagoon. Why? Maybe because the lagoon is more protective for the mothers and calf, and maybe the solitaries are more dynamic and can just get in the lagoon and get out, or can just be traveling around all the Baja Peninsula or all the way in their migration route, but not necessarily need to enter in the lagoon. So all of this is telling us a lot of things about this population in particular. And all of this is with pictures, right? Pictures of the same whale different years is telling us all of this information. As I was saying, the residence time is another thing. It's greater in the mothers than in the solitaries, but not for such difference. So for the maximum time, sometimes there are solitaries that may stay 20 days, may stay 72 days. If you see, this number means that we saw the whale, 30 whales we've seen twice, and at least on 72, the first day and then the 72 day, right? So we were going out 72 times during the season, and then we saw the same whale twice. That's why we got the picture of this whale on day 1 and on day 72, right? So this is showing you a little bit about how we are, yes, we know this data and sometimes we share it with you, but how this data is collected, well, it's all with this wonderful technique that is photo identification. And again, as I was saying, the average of the resident time of the mothers is much higher than solitaries. Okay. Another thing that we know, and this is also for identification, but is done with drones. So in this particular whale, it's a mother. We know that it was pregnant, and so you can identify the whale by the markings on the back, as the same as we did with the horizontal view of the whale. And then a few weeks later with a calf, and then after 3 months with the calf already grown. So if you calculate the volume that she loses and the volume that the calf gains, we know that mothers and calf are losing from 15 to 30% of body fat, and that is because they are feeding and nursing, their calf, and the calf is gaining all this fat. So you see the process of the same whale inside the lagoon, lactating and giving all the power that the calf needs to grow and then to do the migration with her. So it's very, very powerful tool, as I was saying. So this allows us to have long-term studies. I think it's very important to emphasize how collecting all of this data every day or during the whale season for a lot of years has given us a great view of this population. It's actually, the gray whale is the most studied whale. So a lot of things that we know about whales are extrapolated from knowing things about this particular whale, right? Because with other whales, it's even more difficult because they don't go inside the lagoons. So in here, you can see that we have identified at least almost 8,000 whales, and 2,000 of them are mothers and calf. So throughout this whole period, we have like 1/3 of the population is known individually, right? So this is very, very, very interesting, very powerful. Another thing that we collect when we are doing the photo identification is the body condition. So when we're taking the picture of the dorsal, first we take a picture also of the head to see how much fat does she have around this area. And we are considering the body condition because the last few years, we're not going to talk about it because it will be another topic, but there has been an unusual mortality event that we've been having some whales that were skinny, that were not in good body condition. But in the last year, we have been seeing a decrease in the number of whales that have this poor body condition, which means that they are getting better, right? So we have more percentage of fair or good condition in the last years than in the previous years, right? And this is associated with environmental factors that we know it has happened in the feeding grounds. Okay, so that's all about the gray whale. But as I mentioned, I met the whales the first time as with southern right whales in Argentina. So I want to tell you a story about a particular whale. This whale was named Ster. So when I was 10 years old, I went doing a whale watching trip with my mom, and I didn't see the whales because I got seasick, actually. But then when I got inside a coffee shop, I saw a frame And I saw this picture, and it said that the coffee shop had adopted Stare. And I was like, how can you adopt a whale? And why is this whale called Stare, right? So this particular whale caught my attention because there was a diver right next to her. Of course, right now it's forbidden to dive with whales in Argentina and in Mexico. But this picture was from when they were doing a documentary, and they have the research permit to do it. So but I got so interested in this that I write to these persons, to this NGO, that they had this adopt a whale program, and I could know the history of this particular whale with the adoption program that they had. So they showed me the story of this whale, and I fell in love with whales immediately. I knew that I wanted to study animals, but in that time I wanted to study felines. But just knowing about the whales and just meeting in particular this whale got me into this conservation when I was only 15 years old. So since then, I have been doing the same that I was doing back then, that was watching the whales, in this case from the shore because I got seasick, but after I got used to it, I could do it from the boat, right? So just quickly, when we are doing photo identification of right whales, it's with the callosities, which are particularly thick patches of skin that are that are thickened, and that generate these kind of rocks, right? It's called callosities, but they have a unique pattern of this on the head that allows us to identify them individually. So they've been studying it since the 70s, first manually and then with a program that just extracts these patterns of callosities and uses it to generate a 2D image that then you can match. So it's kind of the same process that I explained with the gray whales, right? They first did it with planes, so all the census were doing by plane, and now they're doing it with drones. But I want to emphasize about these individuals. So they put names on them. We know, for example, Doxider as an individual, which is this little whale that's here. Doxider was a calf in the 87. And of course, you know her name is Doxider because she was a little bit curious. She's here right next to this dog, and the people are watching her as a juvenile in the 89. So as you can see, she has the same spot here. And then in 2005, she had a calf. So she is a female, of course. And you can see that Doxider is an individual, but it's also a part of a family that is very loyal to Peninsula Valdez, Argentina. And this is another whale that I adopted in that moment. So as you can see, here is Doxider again. Here's the code that she is the granddaughter of the whale 71. She is the daughter of the whale 75, and she was born in 87. Antonia has had Doxider, but has also had two other calves. So she has at least two brothers and sisters. And then she has had calves of herself. She has had Luna, Espuma, and Paciencia. These are all Spanish names. And if you see, all of the females in this family has this pattern in the belly that is kind of like a ballerina, a classic ballerina skirt. And all of the males are more gray morph, sorry, because we used to call it partially albinos, but now it's not called like that. It's gray morphs. So this is a family that has been known for 5 generations. It's as long as the gray whales. Also with the southern right whales, we have a lot of information that goes for 5 generations of whales, right? 5 generations that each of them can tell us a story. And you can see that it's not only about it's just one individual, but it's an individual that is a part of a big family, right? So that means that each whale is important. Not only the population, not only know how important or how this population is preserved, but also to preserve each and any of the individuals that live in this population. So there is a campaign that says, here's how they grow, here's how they survive. This is another whale that has a little chunk that's called mochita, because in Spanish it kind of means that she loses a chunk of the tail. And they are using this particular individual to raise awareness about ship strikes and about other threats that each individual of the whales are having to face, right? If you remember the picture of the first slide, I don't know if you have seen this picture, but it went viral just a few weeks ago. It's the eye of a humpback whale taken by Rachel Moore. And just a few days after this picture was taken and became famous, this whale, this humpback whale that's called Sweet Girl, was crashed by a ferry and died. So she was in a particular place in French Indonesia. I didn't want to put the video of that because it's too disturbing for me. But the idea is always to tell you about how important a whale is. This humpback whale, Sweet Girl, or Coco, that was known there in French Polynesia, was known by so many people, by so many locals and tourists that were going to see the humpbacks. And she died in a terrible way, and because the speed limit was not respected in that area with this ferry. So as you see, each has a story, and if we know them by each individual, we can think of them as I think it's more important to each of them are unique and need to be preserved. So I think this is a powerful message that each of the individuals of a population can show us. And with that, I want to invite you to a super amazing program that is called Happy Whale in particular, but citizen science in general. So I have been talking about research, but you can help the researchers as well. So we need more eyes in the water. We need more people taking these pictures. As I mentioned, this technique is not that difficult as others. So any of you could help us by taking photographs of whales in this case, right? Or of any other animal that has this kind of photo identification program. So with this, we get some complementary information. The scientists cannot be in the water all the time and in every place. The ocean is huge. So as you know, as I mentioned, with other species, it's not that easy. So if we could get tourists and other people or citizens just taking pictures and helping us, that would be amazing, and I think it's very engaging. So I will try to show a little bit of examples myself that I have taken. And with that, I just make a quick turn because on my first natural habitat trip with the Kingdom of Monarchs last year, I was being trained, and I was with a group, and I just was walking by on this in el Santuario Forest, sorry, El Rosario. And I said to the expedition leader, I said, "Oh, look, a monarch with a tag." And she's like, "What?" So I was like, "What? Isn't it normal?" So in this case, I wasn't the expedition leader, or I wasn't the researcher that studies monarch. I was the citizen, right? So that's why I want to share this story, because I didn't know a lot of things about the monarchs, and I didn't know how special it was to find a tag, to find a monarch, an individual monarch that had a tag, right? So they all went crazy. So we took pictures. I researched how to collect the data. I went into the website and I just put all the data, and I just participated in an amazing research. We still don't know because there are so many tags and so many information, so I haven't got back the information of this particular monarch. So when they arrive in Mexico, we don't know where they are coming from. That's what I wanted to know with this particular tag. But even though I don't know what happened or from where it's from, I know that I contributed to science, to this research and to this particular monitoring of these species, right? So hopefully I will get the information and I can share it with you. But still, this was an event that was super exciting for everyone that was there. Okay. Going back to whales, with this program, I have worked with humpbacks in the Southern Ocean, as I was saying, and this is a website that's super user friendly, and it's great. So I want to show you a little bit how it works, so you can start taking pictures yourself. So basically, if you have a camera that has a GPS, you can set it up so that you have all the coordinates or all the places where you are visiting. You can put the time and the date. If you don't put it in your camera, don't worry, you can put it afterwards in the website. So basically, you just have to set your camera, shoot the picture, and submit your data to happywhale.com. Okay. And with that, you get some information about the whales. So if your whale is new, you can name it, or if your whale is on the database of Happy Whale, you will get a match. So in particular, in here, some amazing data that we have on humpbacks is this particular individual that you see has this dot. So this is the same whale that was spotted in 2017 in January in the Antarctic Peninsula, and then in September in Central America. So you can see a little bit how in just less than a year, it traveled all the way from here to here. So these are all data that the website shows you, and I think it's quite interesting, right? Other odd data that they have is, for example, this one. So these are trans-Pacific whales. So they cross all of the Pacific, this whale, from Central America to here. But if you check, of course, this is a great number, like 6,000 miles. But remember that this is 2 different years. You see how much gap of data we have on this particular humpback. So we don't know what happens between 2010 and 2018. But if you know a little bit about the migration, you know that they are going from breeding grounds to feeding grounds on the southern hemisphere in this particular case. So in these years, she could have done all of these different movements. Sorry. So we don't know, but we know that in 2010 she was here, and in 2018 she was here because of 2 different pictures of 2 different citizens, right? How to get the right shot? Okay, we will go very fast with this. It's the same with the gray whales. They need to be perpendicular. Of course, the whale is not going to pose for you, so you need to take a lot of pictures to get a good one. These are pretty decent, pretty good. And sometimes, don't worry if you don't get a perfect shot. You can submit it anyway, and the program, the algorithm, will do magic. Will find all the spots, and it doesn't matter that the picture is not perfect. I have also been uploading screenshots from videos, and they have been doing a correct match. So that means that the program is very, very good, and it helps a lot to identify, even if you weren't able to take a good shot, because I know how difficult it could be. Okay. Um, so I want to show you just a little more examples that I have from my experience there. So in this particular case, in 2022, I was here at the Antarctic Peninsula. I took a picture and I uploaded it, sorry. And in just a few days, I knew it was a match, okay? So the match was from 2019, and this whale had a transmitter. This whale it's a whale that the Friedlander Biotelemetry Behavioral Ecology Lab has collected from Zodiac near the Palmer Station, US. So that's a Antarctic scientific station with a US flag. So as you see, me as a scientist or as a citizen in this particular case, I was helping with this project. I uploaded data that is going to be useful for these particular researchers, right? So it's just so powerful. Here's another match. This is the under picture is the one that I took, and I took it as well in the Antarctic Peninsula. And then I knew that she was from Colombia in 2017. She has been seen the first time, sorry, and the last time in 2022 when I took the picture. And what is amazing about this is that in just a few days I got the information. So I was on a cruise ship, so I could tell my guests in this particular time, because I was a guest scientist and I was giving lectures to other people that were on board, and I could tell them all of this information in just a few amount of days, because the algorithm works so well that you upload the picture and in maybe 2 or 3 days you will get the match, right? This is how the profile looks. In this particular case, I just want to show you how many data we have for the US and how little data we have for Baja. So we need more eyes, more citizens here in Baja. We are starting to talk about this program and other similar programs of citizen science to collect more data in these areas where the research effort sometimes is a little bit lower, right? With this particular whale, she's called Flopsy, and again, you can see how many data we have from her from this part of California, US. But also all of this, if you start clicking on it in the website, you can see that some years she always returns to California, but some years she goes to Nayarit, Mexico, some years she goes to Costa Rica, some years she goes to Nicaragua, and some years on Baja California Sur, Mexico. So as you can see, she is going north all the time, but when she's choosing the breeding ground, probably each year she is, according to the temperature of the water and other factors, she is choosing to go a little bit more south or a little bit more north. So you can see how powerful this tool is to give us biological information. And again, it's just with the picture of a fluke of a whale. This is a little bit of how my profile looks like, just for you to get engaged and do it yourself. I don't have that many encounters. And actually, you can see here that the contributors of all time. So I'm in a very, very low position. I just started this in 2022. But I think it's really nice and really engaging that this program, that this website is showing you your efforts, is showing you you need to compete only with yourself, right? Get more and more data and help science, but at the same time you are seeing all of these contributions that you've made, and it's very, very, very nice. I think it's rewarding. And so to close up, I want to talk to you about a special one that if you search for it in the website, her name is Laurita. This was the first whale that I photo identified in the Antarctic Peninsula. So my first humpback that I started working with this citizen science project called Happy Whale. And the owner of this program let me name her. So I named her after my mother. And so that's why she's called Laurita. And I have not seen her since the first time I saw it in 2022, and no one else has seen it since then. So that's why I really need a lot of eyes in the water, because I want you to find Laurita so I know where she is now. And so with that, thank you very much. Please take many pictures, help researchers, become citizen science yourself. And I hope I got you interested in this amazing world of whales and photo identification technique. Thank you.
Aru, that was so good. Oh my gosh. I was just geeking out the entire time. As before we started recording, everyone, Maru and I was going deep into citizen science and tourism. And yeah, I know the founder of Happy Whale, Ted. He's a great guy. And also, you brought up the Friedlander Lab. I actually know the
Mhm.
founder of that lab as well, Ari. He's
Ah,
incredible. I know. I'm
just a
entrenched
small
in that
world.
world. Yes, absolutely. So, everybody, we have time for questions, and we have a relatively quiet audience today. You were just so thorough, Maru. So, everybody in your control panel, if you have any questions for Maru, please just throw them in there. We'll do questions for like the next 10-ish minutes as we get
Maybe I was
questions rolling
muted.
in. No, no, you did good. You had me locked in, so it was fantastic. We do have one question here. So, I think this was going back to your, I think it was your gray whale
Mhm.
charts that the number of mothers with calves had steeply dropped in the past few years. Could you
Yes.
make any further comments about that?
Okay, yes. Yes, I didn't show it because I wasn't I spoke a little bit about the unusual mortality event. And so yes, one of the things that a consequence of having less food in the Arctic because of different changes in the sea ice and on the general oceanographic variables over there at their feeding grounds, it's what is making is that the whales that are particularly affected, the gray whales that are particularly affected with that, are the mothers. Why? Because it's not easy to do this big migration that gray whales do, and it's even harder if you are pregnant, right? Or if you, yes, if you have to bear a calf. So that's why in the last years that we've been having this particular problem that is probably associated with climate change, what we have been seeing in as a result, one of the consequences is that we have less calves. In particular, the population has dropped down from 26,000 whales approximately to 16,000. So that's a lot. It's a lot in just a few years from 2019 that it was declared to 2023. So the good news is that last year, researchers have seen that there are less skinny whales, as I mentioned, a little bit more mothers and calf. So this means that the whales are slowly recovering from this event. But of course, as I mentioned, there were in this event there were more stranded whales because they could not get enough food, enough supply, so they stranded. They died probably of malnutrition, and also there were more abortions probably because of this lack of energy, lack of food that they had. So this cycle that I was speaking about, this 2 year cycle, it probably went higher to a 3 year cycle. So when the whale was supposed to be pregnant, if she had an abortion, then we will have to wait for another year for she to mate again, to get pregnant, and to be able to have a calf in the lagoon. So that's why with the photo identification, we can know what's happening with each of the whales and with the population in general. So I don't know if I answered the whole question, but it's a whole topic on itself. What happened? It's kind of cyclic, like it has happened before. It's a climatic cycle, but still, this was the most severe that we've seen since we started studying the population. And lucky for us, as I mentioned, the whales are recovering slowly. So we do expect to have a little bit more calves this season than the last previous seasons. Um, and also, I want to say that these gray whales are very resilient. They have survived harvesting by humans. They are surviving these events, and they always get back to their original numbers, the original population numbers. It's the only species of whale that has recovered entirely from the whaling era. So, as an example, for southern right whales, I think then they are 20% of the original numbers. And with gray whales, we know that they have reached the numbers of the pre-whaling era. So I think this species is very resilient, not the one that is on the screen. The one that is on the screen is a humpback, but the gray whales is an amazing creature that is very resilient, but still we need to to work harder on conservation efforts, so that we help them thrive again.
Actually, I'm glad that you just brought that up because I am receiving lots of questions about that. Could you maybe go a
Mhm.
little bit further into, are there general threats that are affecting whale populations as a whole? And what are some of the conservation efforts that are helping to bring them back where and if possible?
Yes, of course. Well, general threats to whales are ship strikes. That's one of the biggest issues. So for the northern right whales, we have a critically endangered species. So she's very very low numbers, and it's because of the ship strikes. So the right whales go very slow when they are on the surface, so they are very susceptible to ship strikes. And as I mentioned, it happens also with the humpbacks. So 20,000 whales in general die of ship strikes each year, so it's a major issue for whales. And the conservation efforts that are being done is that we know the migration pattern of each of the species or each of the populations. So basically, in some areas, there are some efforts. For example, as with the northern right whales, they just shifted the place where the route that the ships do. So they shift it so that it doesn't go where the big concentration of whales are. The same in Antarctica. I can tell you an example from Antarctica is that when you are on certain areas that we know there are high concentration of whales, all the cruise ships, all the tourism ships need to slow down to, I think, less than 10 knots because it's a whale area. Of course, if you are outside of the area, you still need to be aware. Of course, they have people that are monitoring, that are looking. In particular, with tourism ships, it's there's always a vigilant in the bridge that is searching for whales and avoiding them. But in some cases, like some other ships that are doing transport of stuff, sometimes is they don't have this type of observers. So the regulations are getting stricter on that, to put observers on the ships, to slow down the speed, to change the courses of the ships to avoid ship strikes. So that's one of the threats. Other threat is in whale entanglement, which there are a lot of efforts done to find the whales that are entangled. There is like a whole network of people trained to do this correctly and safely, and to try to save these individuals from entanglement. Climate change, pollution, noise pollution. There are a lot of threats, even though we are not hunting whales anymore for food, at least. There are some threats still. So it's it's very very very. There's a lot of things to be said about that. But I think those are some of the examples that are quite illustrative of the threats that whales face.
Yes, thank you so much for explaining all of that. We
No
do have
problem.
some great questions about actually submitting photos themselves. If
Uh-huh.
somebody has a backlog of photos, let's say they went on a trip years
Mhm.
ago or any time that
Yes.
wasn't today,
No problem.
should they go ahead and submit their photos? And
Yes.
if that is the case, then what is the best way to go about that?
Well, in particular, happy whale is for humpbacks, as I mentioned. So if you have a picture of a fluke, hopefully you know the exact date that you took the picture. But if you know only the year, there are some parts in the website where you can put all of that information. So you even can say the accuracy of your position. So maybe you remember it was in Hawaii, but you don't remember exactly the point, or you didn't have a GPS, or your camera was not set to the particular place. So all of this is on the website. So once you upload the picture, it gives you a lot of option. I'm telling you, it's very user friendly. So don't worry if the picture is old; it still works. It still fills the gaps that we have on the database. and you can still put all of the things to explain, and someone on the other side, on the program, let's say, is going to check all that, and is going to check the accuracy, and if the picture is valid or not. So sometimes you will submit it, and maybe they will say, okay, we have received your picture, thank you so much for collaborating, but maybe you won't get a match because of lack of data, or because the picture was not so good, or whatever, right? But still, all of the things that you upload in your profile will stay in your profile, and you will have all of your submissions. So yes, I strongly encourage you, as I mentioned, to submit it, because I upload screenshots from videos, and still they do magic and they find the match, right? So if you know around the date, you can put all of that, and it's really helpful. Mhm.
Well, this has been incredible, Maru. I am just over the moon right now talking about citizen science. And I think that will be the last question that I will take for today. So, Maru, I will turn it to you for any last closing comments.
Well, thank you very much for being here, for listening to me for almost an hour. And yes, please go out to the sea, be respectful with the whales, but take as many photos as you can. And thank you very much.
And again, thank you, Maru. And thank you so much for everybody who tuned in. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.